Hello, and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview. This is a show where we take a look at what's coming to the current edition of the North Coast Journal. I am your host, Tanya Schrum, and we are joined as usual by North Coast Journal's news editor, Thad Greenson, and arts and features editor, Jennifer Fumiko Cahill. Welcome to you both. I hope you're staying dry on this rainy day in paradise.
It is coming down out there.
It is.
Not a fan.
Not a fan, and neither is our hair.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about what's coming to this week's cover story. Thad, would you fill us in?
Yeah, Tanya, this week we have a cover story by Cal Matters, which is the nonprofit, nonpartisan newsroom dedicated to covering California policy and politics. And we chose to run this because it's an interesting look at the U.S. Senate race in California, and particularly the pledge by the three frontrunners not to accept corporate PAC money. So this is Barbara Lee, Adam Schiff, and Katie Porter, the three congressional representatives now vying for the Senate. And the article, I think, does a really interesting job, not really dissecting the race, but really looking at kind of this pledge and what it does and doesn't mean, and kind of through that lens gives, I think, an interesting look at campaign financing and efforts at campaign finance reform, which I think is never seems to get a ton of traction, but is when you talk to voters, it is something that people are concerned about. And so I don't want to spend too much time on it because we got another big news story that I want to get to. But I'd encourage everybody to read the cover story this week. And one of the things I think it really illustrates well is that this pledge not to take corporate PAC money is essentially fairly empty. It's kind of has some buzzwords as far as political action committees, PACs, and corporations that might make somebody think, oh, these folks aren't taking corporate money. They're not dependent on, the corporations that represent the top 1% of us and income earners to fund their campaigns. And that's just absolutely not true. What it means essentially is that they're not taking money directly from corporate PACs, but they are taking certainly money directly from corporate CEOs. These same corporate PACs are donating tons and tons of money into these candidates' private political action committees, which are then spending this money lavishly. Other political action committees, advocating on their behalf. So the experts kind of say, well, things like this are kind of mainstreaming the conversation. They're small steps forward, so you can't discount them entirely. But please don't make your Senate vote based on the assumption that any of these folks are not receiving any corporate money.
Thank you, Thad. I definitely think Cal Matters did a great job of highlighting how there are a lot of workarounds to getting that money in their campaign.
Yeah, and I think I guess the one last thought, I think history has shown us that there always will be these workarounds, and that the only kind of true answer to getting this money out of campaigns is to have publicly financed campaigns. But again, that doesn't ever seem to get much traction in Congress. I wonder why.
Indeed. Well, leading into this President's Day weekend and all of our civil importance, let's switch to the news story also coming to the voters' minds.
Yeah, so we have a rare contested judicial election coming up in March. Humboldt County went like 15 or 20 years without a contested judicial election, but we've had a couple of them lately. But the one in particular, the incumbent Greg Kreis was appointed by the governor to the judgeship in 2017, and this is his first time kind of seeking re-election or seeking election, I guess I should say, because he was appointed. But there was, as folks, kind of regular listeners and readers might recall, there was a lawsuit that had some kind of salacious allegations against Judge Kreis that had been kind of pending through the courts for about 18 months and then had just resolved kind of at the beginning of the year. The portion of it that was brought against the county of Humboldt, he was being sued by a former deputy public defender who alleged a whole swath of things, but a lot of them centered on Judge Kreis's alleged treatment of him at kind of a party attended by a lot of public defenders some years back. And alleged that Judge Kreis used anti-Semitic slurs in referring to him, threw him in a lake when he was fully clothed, and was just kind of belittling this entire trip. But that lawsuit was thrown out of court as it pertained to the county earlier this year, and the judge overseeing it, a visiting judge from outside of the county, kind of indicated that she didn't feel like it was provable, that it didn't have much merit, and then Judge Kreis settled his portion of the lawsuit in January, and so we kind of thought that was behind us, and then on February 7th, the Commission on Judicial Performance, which is the body in California that oversees the 1,800 or so judges in the state, issued a press release and what's called a notice of official proceedings, saying that essentially it was charging Judge Kreis with 19 counts of misconduct. And I think a lot of people saw this and were quick to say, oh, this is just the stuff that was in the lawsuit, and kind of dismiss it. And so what I want to make sure folks know about this is, one, that what's being alleged in this commission filing is far beyond what was in Rory Kalin's lawsuit against Judge Kreis. It alleges just really pervasive misconduct and like across a whole spectrum of kind of alleged behaviors, everything from just discourtesy in the courtroom to failing to recuse himself from cases, or to put potential conflicts on the record in cases, to like some just really troubling conduct. There's an allegation that he had an affair with another court employee, and then lied about it when that news started circulating through the courthouse, and accused another court employee of spreading, false rumors about him, which led to that employee being fired. The allegation is that he was in fact having this affair and was lying about it to the then presiding judge and court management, which led to this employee being fired. There is an allegation that he essentially that he sexually assaulted a woman at a private residence, that, she told him firmly and explicitly not to touch her. And he proceeded to grab or slap her buttocks after that. There's allegations of illegal drug use, of drinking and driving. It is, again, just the scope of the allegations is pretty staggering. So while I think it's important for everybody to know these at this point are just allegations, that Judge Kreis will go through this official proceeding, which will be in front of 3 judges appointed by the California Supreme Court. He'll get to have his attorney. He'll get to cross-examine witnesses. These allegations have not been proven by the preponderance of evidence standard that will be used. And so, we're probably going to go to the polls in March, if folks haven't voted already, not knowing kind of the outcome of these. But I think there is some, supporters of Judge Kreis have kind of dismissed this as either politically motivated, or as these are just merely, allegations that haven't been vetted at all. And I just want folks to know that, like, there's a process that gets to the point where these official proceedings are begun by the the Commission on Judicial Performance. And so I had a chance to catch up with Sonia Smith, who is the assistant director there, and also personally oversees investigations. And she just kind of talked to me generally, not about Judge Kreis's case, but about how the commission kind of handles complaints and allegations of judicial misconduct. So the commission, receives more than 1,200 of these complaints a year. I think 1,300 and something in 2022, which is the last year that full data is available. When these complaints come in, they're assigned to staff who kind of do intake and kind of determine if there's potentially, if what is alleged is true, is it like an actionable, thing of misconduct from the judge? And if so, is there, does it seem like there's some evidence there? And, so the vast majority of these complaints are just kind of thrown out initially, like they don't pass that initial review. I think in 2022 of the 1,300 and something complaints that came in, only 90 were then assigned for investigation, which is kind of the next stage of review. And so in cases where where it does seem like there's something there, the staff comes to the commission and says that we think an investigation is warranted, and the commission has to approve that. So there's kind of checks and balances throughout. Should just stop real quick and say this commission is 11 people appointed by the governor, the legislature, the Supreme Court. They're coming at this from various backgrounds. So then if a complaint is investigated, it's assigned to probably 2 attorneys who then contact witnesses, review court documents, review paper trails, and kind of conduct a preliminary investigation. You can kind of liken it to a law enforcement investigation of an alleged crime. Then they put together the findings of their investigation. They present it to another commission employee who is tasked with reviewing these investigations. They review it, they bring it to the commission and say, we think this warrants discipline or official proceedings, or we don't. And then the commission, votes on that. And so this, I just want folks to know that this passed like several layers of review in that process before getting to this point. And it's really, really rare that allegations get to this point of, not being deemed serious enough that they warrant, an official proceeding, and not just being something that the commission says, well, yeah, we think the judge made a mistake, or, the judge warrants, a written reprimand or a private letter admonishing them not to engage in this type of behavior, again, but this is serious enough that it warrants, it might warrant severe discipline if these allegations are upheld. And this really happens in 1 or 2 cases a year. I mean, less than 1% of even the cases that are investigated by the commission could get to this stage. And, the last thing that I've heard some of Judge Kreis's supporters, question is kind of the timing of, this coming out really like right as absentee ballots are being sent out in the county. And, kind of them insinuating that it's politically motivated and it's kind of a hit job. And, as far as I can tell, the timing of it was, as Sonia Smith at the commission told me, that the commission just doesn't take those outside factors into account. And so they investigate allegations. When they feel like they're actionable, they act. And, there's no taking into account, oh, the March primary is coming up, maybe we should wait, or maybe we should rush this thing together to get it out before the March primary. So according to Sonia Smith, anyway, the timing of this is coincidental and perhaps unfortunate, but it is not the motivation behind this. And, I guess I'd just also say that if those thinking maybe it is politically motivated, I would just kind of ask, like, how do you get 11 commissioners appointed by the governor, the Supreme Court, the Senate Judiciary, and the Assembly Speaker, like, that invested in Humboldt County's judicial politics? It seems a little bit of a stretch to me.
Well, Thad, I really appreciate this reporting. As a citizen trying to do your own research when casting your ballot, sometimes it's not easy to get information on the judgeship. So I appreciate you and the North Coast Journal bringing us this information for people to process as they move forward into their voting. And I'm sure
Absolutely.
You'll also follow up with us.
Yeah, we will continue. So the next thing that's coming is Judge Kreis has until February 22nd to file a formal response to the commission to each of the 19 counts. And certainly when he does that, we will report on it, and then we'll report, throughout the rest of the process.
Thad, thank you for bringing us this story, and I encourage everybody to pick up their copy of the North Coast Journal and read the entire article. And with that, we're going to switch gears to our sweet Jennifer and see what's coming in live theater and around the area. Jennifer, what do you have for us this week?
I have so much drama in the form of actual stage drama, because this week, over the weekend, the Super Bowl happened. While that was all going on, Ticker Bouncer.
You mean the superb owl?
Yes, the superb owl. While that was all going on, Ticker Bouncer Custodio sacrificed his pregame celebration and access to wings and things, to go and see not one, but two plays for us this week. So two different things opened, one in Arcata at the Exit Theater and one at the newly minted 5th and D Street Theater. So, and I'll get to that in a minute if you're like, where is that? Well, it's on 5th and D Street, isn't it? But we'll get into it. So, you may recall the Exit Theater is a relatively new theater, which is on the plaza, but upstairs. And when I say upstairs, as Ticker describes it, the stairs are a little bit treacherous, so be aware. He attempted to make it up there in heels and struggled. And let me tell you, Tigger is fit, okay? I have seen him do duck walk on stage in heels. He can handle it. So if he struggled on those stairs, get ready. Wear sneakers. But he was describing the theater as being sort of like a cafe ambiance. And he talks about the effect of that on the dramatic action. So the play that's there right now is Potato Gumbo, which is about residents of a senior living facility who kind of make a break for it. And in hopes of sharing a potato or perfecting a recipe for potato gumbo, which, sidebar, I don't know. Anyway.
I wasn't sure either, honestly.
I'm not sure. It's got to be okra for me. So, but in this story, it's kind of one of those tales that he describes as being part Golden Girls, part On Golden Pond, part One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, in which these residents take off on a misadventure that involves the police at some point, spoiler, and kind of the reversal of when adult children of people who were getting older kind of take over the parent role in the relationship. And he talks about how when you're acting on stage, just like acting on stage versus acting in film, like we see a different style. We just sort of expect it when we go to the theater that everything is bigger, everything is more pronounced. It's not like in a movie where you have close-ups and, the camera is doing work. In this case, he talks about the things that don't have to be signaled with big gestures, big sighs, big movements, and about how people can just kind of immerse themselves in a feeling, and it communicates itself to us because we are sitting at, eye level. We're sitting at stage level and we're up close and everybody has an eye line to the stage. It's very, very different as an experience. And so, yeah, I think both the play, he was saying, is really something that everybody should see, that it's great, but also the experience of being in this tiny theater, if you can manage the stairs, is really something, and a different kind of experience at a theater. There are also big changes over at the building formerly known as NCRT, North Coast Repertory Theater in Eureka, which is now the stomping grounds of not one, but two companies. North Coast Repertory Theater still has its plays and its schedule and its, goings on there. But also, you may recall that Redwood Curtain Theater was displaced, lost its lease, had to move out, which is too bad because I really like that bear mural. So now they are also housed in the same theater, and they have these alternating schedules so that both theaters can operate and have their own flavor of their own choices, because they're very distinct theaters, right? With different kinds of choices. You didn't go to Redwood Curtain to see like a big musical, right? And you didn't really go to NCRT to see like a one-woman show or something. So it's, both things are happening in the same building, and it's kind of cool how it's coming together. And it's interesting to me because I remember years ago thinking, boy, like theater schedules really overlap so much that it's kind of hard to make it work if you want to see everything and support everything. But this is allowing them to alternate, and it's just very cool. So the first Redwood Curtain Theater event show to happen at the 5th and D Street Theater space, as it's now named. P.S. There's still barbecue next door, so it's fine. The first one is Hurricane Diane, which I actually went to see, and it was great. Tigger talks about, of course, I'm like, who's great? Tigger has all kinds of things to say about the subtleties and the production, and the sound is really fantastic. And he was very excited about that because it allows you to really stay in the experience. But the story is pretty great. In it, Dionysus, or Bacchus, depending on which side of the classics classroom you sat in, has been reborn into the earth in the form of a lesbian gardener. Oh, pardon me, landscape person. So, and she is trying to rebuild the cult of Dionysus to kind of bring Earth back into fighting shape in terms of its, environment by starting with 4 women in a New Jersey cul-de-sac. And so she goes about kind of seducing these women partly with backyard plans, which I think actually could work. And it was really great. There are a bunch of really great actresses, and which Tigger was not at all surprised by. He points out that Peggy Metzger, Cynthia Martels, Natasha Samuelson, Caroline Needham, they've all been, just stellar in pretty much everything that they've been in. And same thing with the direction by Cassandra Hesseltine, who you may know from her day job over at the Humboldt Film Commission. And just so you know, while all the insanity over Leonardo DiCaprio being in town was happening, she was also doing rehearsals for a play. So, but it's a really fun and funny show with all different kinds of kind of gentle humor throughout, some body humor, and then also some fairly serious messages regarding our environment and our abuse of it. And Tigger gives it many thumbs up and also says that you should go see it lest you anger the gods.
Exactly.
That's a very serious threat right there.
Get out there and see some live theater. Come on, people.
Yes, right? And also, if you are hanging around Eureka and wanting to go see some culture, the Clark Historical Museum is always good to pop into. Can we just talk about it for a second? If you are a student or senior, I only looked it up for this story. I didn't realize it's only like $25 to become a member, and then you get to go to all the lectures and stuff. But what I enjoy, just like I enjoy our zoo being kind of small, is I enjoy a small, focused museum. So you're not in there just like passed out in the armory section because you've been wandering all day. I love a small museum, and the Clark has a show on right now, an exhibit on that is about the food and drink of Humboldt County. And this goes way back to the early days of lumber. And I talked to let me make sure I have his title. Josh Buck is the executive director curator of the Clark Historical Museum. He is a tall drink of water. I had to back up. He was quite tall. I was having neck problems talking to him. But he also, by the way, when you're reading the article and reading his quotations, you should know that he has a voice that makes Elwood Blue sound like castrati. So anyway, he told me about all the cool stuff in the exhibit, including lots of stuff they got from the Samoa Cookhouse while it's closed to the public. They hauled somehow this giant iron stove from there, and it was really a group effort with lots of people donating things, whether it was like a menu from Lazio's or, old crabbing equipment, or, there were lots of really cool things on display. And I think it's worth popping in there, especially if you're a beer nut. There's a lot of like old Humboldt beer breweries, their stuff on display. And of course, as always, Neelis Hall has really great indigenous stuff on display. And this month, or actually through August, it'll be showing lots of things related to native foodways, including eel baskets and things like that. So it's a great show, and I recommend everybody go see it.
All right. Thank you, Jennifer and Thad, for all of those stories. That wraps up our time for this week. The North Coast Journal Current Edition is available on newsstands now. Pick up your copy today, or, of course, you can find it at northcoastjournal.com. I am Tanya Schrum. Thanks for being with us and staying informed and supportive of our North Coast community. Happy Valentine's!